What's up, Guardians? At the time of recording this video, it is less than 14 days until Edge of Fate launches. So with that, I want to go ahead and give you my top 18 primary weapons before the Edge of Fate. As a note, we do not have the weapon patch notes yet, so if anything changes coming up this week, I will go ahead and update in the comments if something starts to move ahead or fall behind. But this is going to be up to date to right now. We are currently in a hand cannon meta, so if things change, obviously, I'm going to update this, but right now, hand cannons are pretty much the best weapon in PvE. So you're going to see a lot of hand cannons towards the top here. There's going to be a couple of surprises, but that is the mainstay. So if you don't like hand cannons, you can switch some of these rolls out for equivalent rolls on something like an SMG or a sidearm if you have something like that. But a lot of these are pretty unique rolls that are only available on these hand cannons. So keep that in mind. The rolls are kind of more important than the actual weapon or frame, but these are probably the best weapons that you can use in expert content, legend content. We're talking nightfalls, we're talking raids, we're talking legend campaigns, up to grandmasters. I have a preference for harder content. Grandmasters is where I consider things viable or not. Sidearms aren't the best in grandmasters, so they're generally not something I use. That's where I put a lot of my time. We do a lot of day one raids, so that's my focus and where I'm coming from. Most of these should work in lower end content, but the lower you go, the more things like kinetic tremors start to fall off because you're killing things too quickly. So things like Firefly and Dragonfly come a bit up more. So use your best judgment there, but a lot of these weapons have roles that work in both, but I'm going to give you my preferences for higher tier content. Now on this list, we're going to have 3 weapons of every type. So it's a bit of a top 3 for every type in the game for all their primaries that are legendaries. Starting us off at the bottom of the list, my 18th best weapon is Adamantite. This is our strand healing auto. It's at the bottom because it's, hardly a strand weapon. It's more of a healing weapon than anything else. But it is the only healing auto in the top slot at the time. So it gets to go to first place. I think it is very powerful to have the option to heal when you need it. But in the event that you don't need the healing, it doesn't really do very much. It does fill up its resource on any damage, ability damage, special weapon damage, so you can fill it up pretty reliably and get the value out of the healing. You'll get some Unravel, which can have some subclass synergy while healing your teammates. And then if you take the 2 perks that I think are the only ones that are really viable here, Reciprocity, which will heal you when you heal a teammate, and Circle of Life, which will give you a 25% damage boost that stacks on the support frame boost, will give you about 37.5% bonus damage, which will make this hit decently hard in endgame, but it's not going to tear anything apart. It's not really what it's meant for. But this will keep you alive in hard times. I just think it falls behind our other healing auto and most other strand weapons. Number 17 on this list is going to be Veiled Threat. This is our Stasis Auto Rifle from episode Echoes. It is a 720, which is my favorite auto frame. And it has a bit of stasis synergy in here with Headstone, but we don't have Rhyme Stealer, so it drops it down a little bit. The reason this makes the list is because this gets Shoot to Loot, which is one of my favorite perks in endgame. I'd really slept on it up until the final shape came out, and then it became very quickly one of my favorite perks in the game. Thanks to this gun, I was doing a challenge where I was only using new weapons when final shape dropped, so this was like my only Shoot to Loot weapon, and it put in work for the month or 2 that I was doing that. Along with that, it has Surrounded, which when enhanced is a 47% damage buff, which is pretty great. There are a couple of other things you can do, like you could do Collective Action, but it depends on the class that you're on. Desperate Measures is a bit of work to get working, and Headstone, if you're on stasis, is nice. If you're not on stasis, though, kind of pointless to take. I just found Surrounded to be the most competent on this, paired with Shoot to Loot, hitting things that are farther away. You're kind of just picking up ammo and using your special in that case. Rocket sidearms, grenade launchers, what have you. Coming in at 16, we have No Hesitation. This is our Solar Healing Auto. This is infinitely better than the Strand Healing Auto for one reason, and that's Physic. Physic gives you and your teammate restoration when you heal them. That is by far so much better than anything the Strand Auto can do with healing. This will keep you alive in so much content, and it kind of just breaks the game. Now that said, if you're not doing something where you need the healing, if the healing's not coming in handy at all times, it's probably better to drop the healing auto, because you're not getting as much value out of it, and you can kill things faster, which will prevent you from taking damage in the first place. However, in the content where this matters, in contest raids, contest dungeons, master modes, pretty great. Now, if you pair it with that, Once again, I'm taking Surrounded. I really like the damage buff of Surrounded. And when I was using this, it was Contest Vespers. So we were in the second encounter with the Servitor boss, and there was just ads everywhere. So I just took Surrounded because I felt like I was doing no damage otherwise. Circle of Life should, again, be good. But it's hard to argue with a 47% damage buff stacked on top of the support frame buff, bringing you up to 61% bonus damage. And if you're able to build into it, the Dealer's Choice Origin trait gets you a good amount of super energy, and this will be going up even more in Edge of Fate if you build into Intellect. Now, at 15, we have another Dealer's Choice weapon, this one being Bold Endings, the Stasis Heavy Burst Hand Cannon. I, like many people, did not like Heavy Burst Hand Cannons for a long time, until Unloved came out, and I used it a bit, and I was like, okay, it's pretty good, I'll try some other ones. This is a very good hand cannon. Now, ideally, you're running this with Headstone Dragonfly, which doesn't have the most synergy, but it is double explosions on a headshot, which is surprisingly easy to get with these. Like, it feels pretty squishy to shoot. You have to get used to how they feel, but they hit like a truck. Then having double explosions does clear ads extremely fast. If you wanted to, you can switch in something like Strategist or Demo here to get some ability energy and drop one of the splash perks. Or you could take maybe Desperate Measures to boost some damage and go with Headstone. Or you could take on Attrition Orbs if you really want to. Attrition Orbs has been having a better stock value as we've gone on. So it's pretty good. I don't prefer it on this. It's a little bit slow to dump the mag. So probably better on an SMG. At spot 14, we have the old Blast Furnace. Now this is a banger from way back in Into the Light, right before the final shape dropped. This is one of the things that I chased super hard, along with one other kinetic weapon that I chased really hard. And at the time, I got a couple of shoot to loot rolls just because I didn't have shoot to loot weapons, but I wasn't really into it yet. But right now, shoot to loot is a godsend. So shoot to loot combined with something like One for All or Frenzy goes really hard on this thing. Rampage is what I have on my roll, and it was fine for the Legend campaign, but it's not my preference. Something like Frenzy, One for All is probably your best bet. Maybe Firefly, because the explosion will pick up some of those bricks if it hits them. But you can also just take Kinetic Tremors in that left column, and you can go K-Tremors, Frenzy on a 4-round burst pulse rifle, which is pretty phenomenal. You will proc Kinetic Tremors in 10 hits, which is about 3 bursts. A little bit less than 3 bursts. So this thing can put up really big numbers in endgame, as well as having the Indomitability Origin trait, which is either a little bit of Pugilist or a little bit of Demo depending on your subclass. And who says no to more ability energy? This is going to get up to about 7.5% coming into Edge of Fate, with the Grenada melee changes going up to 100. So if you're stacking any of these ability energy things, this is a good origin trait to keep looking at. At 13, we have Joxer's Longsword. Now this is a 2-round burst pulse rifle, and I'll be honest, a lot of people really love these things. They have good numbers. I think they feel kind of weird, kind of like the 2-round burst hand cannons. They feel weird to me. However, you can't deny this thing has some of the greatest rolls. Just even shoot to loot is here. But newly buffed destabilizing rounds, giving you volatile rounds for several seconds, up to 5 seconds, is phenomenal. The AoE on that is now actually good. The cooldown is much shorter, making it much better for getting those ad clears with it. You can pair that with Dragonfly to do double splash. You could take Repulsor to get Void Overshields while you're killing things. You could put Withering Gaze on to proc Weaken with your primary, which has some niche uses on some Hunter builds coming up, and probably a little bit of Titan. As well as you have One for All here just for a damage boost. You could do Demoralize if you're into AoE Weaken. I'd probably take Withering Gaze just for the on-demand Weaken. But if you know you're going to be killing things pretty quickly, Demoralize is probably better for those large groups of ads. And you can take Demo or Dragonfly here if you don't want to focus into Void 3.0 too much to continue doing ad clear or building up to your grenade. The origin traits, nothing special. Nadir Focus is probably what you'd want to take because it gives you better stats for just firing the gun. But you could also make One Quiet Moment work. Not really here to make or break it. It's really about the perk rolls of this thing. Number 12 is going to be Nullify, the 2-round burst from Salvation's Edge. Now this, again, great frame, great weapon archetype, good stats. I think if you're taking a solar weapon, no matter what class you're on, you take Heal Clip. 120 HP for proccing Heal Clip just after 1 kill is a really big reward. That's almost as much as Devour. It's actually more than Devour if you're not a Warlock using one of the aspects for it. You can pair that with Chaos Reshape just for good damage, and once you have 2 stacks, you'll get healing from that as well. You could put Incandescent on if you're on Solar. I wouldn't really run Incandescent if you're not on Solar in endgame. It doesn't really pack the damage to make up for the lack of subclass energy. That's why I put Chaos Reshape here. It's just kind of generally useful. But if you're doing real Solar, you can run Incan with Demo, maybe Firefly. You don't necessarily need to heal clip as much if you're running a Restoration setup on Solar. But even then, just heal clip and a damage perk, super, super strong on this thing. Now, at number 11, just outside of the top 10, we have Imminence from Salvation's Edge as well. This is the Strand submachine gun. I know we just got another Strand submachine gun in episode Heresy. That thing sucks. Imminence doesn't really have a lot more Strand synergy. You can run Slice if you want. You do have Hatchling for that. But you don't have Tear, which I think Tear is probably the best Strand perk on a weapon. Just as a weapon itself, you've got Demo and Pugilist, both in the left column. You've got Enlightened Action in here if you just want a reload perk. You've got Chaos Reshaped, which is a great, amazing damage perk. Don't sleep on it. I know a lot of you love Frenzy. Chaos Reshaped is the original Frenzy damage of 20%, plus that 35 if you double it up, which is nothing to scoff at if you're in endgame. That said, you still have Firefly if you want to go for some kind of AoE explosions. You can take that with Slice. You can take the Hatchling roll and do that double Strand synergy. Or you can put on Strategist if you want to work into your class ability there as well. I think the DPS of SMGs is just a little bit better or more reliable than pulse rifles. A lot of people are more used to using SMGs in endgame, so that's why this gets to the 10th spot, and the other pulses have gone a little bit lower. Breaking into the top 10, we have the Multimach CCX Iron Banner weapon. If you do not have the Multimach, talk to Gunsmith. Banshee should still be selling the Attrition Orb Kinetic Tremor roll. Go ahead and enhance it. Top 10 weapon in the game. Fantastic for endgame. Kinetic Tremors is one of the best damage perks in endgame. SMGs take a couple of shots to proc it, but they do low damage per hit, have a high fire rate, so they proc it pretty consistently. With enhancement, you're looking at about 13 shots, which is a third of the mag. Fantastic. Attrition orbs, you gotta hit a little bit over half the mag, so about once per mag you're gonna be making an orb. But Kinetic Tremors counts as hits for that, so it'll give you a little bit of leeway in there to proccing the orb. On top of that, orbs in endgame are pretty much the entire game. They can give you healing, they will give you ammo, they will give you ability energy. You can build so many things into orbs, so making them for hits in endgame is amazing. Obviously, Velocity Baton is the best with attrition orbs, but that does not mean that any other weapon is bad with attrition orbs. Traditionally, you use field tested on this thing. This gets you bonus stats for dealing damage and getting kills until you die. But Skulking Wolf has had some changes in PvE so that you get hit less often after activating it and getting kills. I don't know how great that is. I don't know who's really using Skulking Wolf over Field Tested. I think Field Tested is just more reliable. You get consistently more stats as you go on. So once you max it out, you're getting like 50 reload speed, which pretty much trumps, I think, not getting hit because it lets you proc into the Tremors and Attrition Orbs so much more often. But as you can see, it is tough competition to get past Multimach into the top 10. But we have a couple of weapons up ahead that, just by virtue of the archetype they're in and some of their perks, have just blown past Multimach, in my opinion. At number 9, we have our best stasis weapon on this list, which is the Judgment Hand Cannon from Prophecy of the Nine. Judgment is nothing fancy for stasis weapons. Headstone Rhyme Stealer is pretty much the most vanilla you can get when it comes to stasis, and that's totally fine. I think Rhyme Stealer is kind of a must pick if you really want to run stasis as your weapon and your subclass. Building into Frost Armor is all but mandatory. If you do want to build more into damage or you're not worried about Frost Armor, Time Payload and Paracausal Affinity are pretty good damage buffs that you can take. And if you don't need the Stasis Crystal, you could take Demolitionist. So a Demo Rhyme Stealer might be pretty good on a Stasis Warlock, letting you build up Osmiomancies or other Cold Snaps or Dusk Fields, and then heading Rhyme Stealer to get yourself Frost Armor. Not a bad combo. Pretty good weapon. I think Gravity Well is an amazing origin trait, letting you pick up ammo when you reload nearby. Almost like Shoot to Loot without all the work, but not as good for catching ammo really far away. It's more of a convenience thing than a I'm going to proc overflow with my rocket launcher while I'm standing in the middle of the plate and there's an ammo brick 200 meters away. You can't do that kind of tech, but it will get you more convenient ammo pickups, and it's probably better than crossing over in PvE. Number 8 on this list is Luna's Howl. This is probably the best solar hand cannon in the game and the best solar weapon. Now the thing is, solar weapons are kind of a dime a dozen because you're looking for heal clip on pretty much everything. I don't have Zuuli's banned in this list. I know explosive payload incandescent and explosive payload one for all. People love that on Zuuli's. It's great for damage. I love heal clip. I think heal clip is a no-brainer if you're running solar. You want a heal clip weapon. If you just wanted damage, why focus on solar? Why not take a kinetic weapon? But yeah, I think heal clip is a must take. Now, desperate measures or incandescent can both work. They're both adding a bit of damage. Incandescent, I'd probably focus on more if you're on solar than not on solar. But on top of that, you have indomitability as well, giving you ability energy back. But heal clip alone puts this in the top 10. In spot number 7, we have Nation of Beast, the Last Wish hand cannon. This thing is ridiculously powerful. I actually went and got the red border for this the season it came out. I think it was Season of the Deep. Super fun. Dragonfly Volt Shot is my role on this. Double splash. While it doesn't kill as fast in endgame, hand cannons have the capacity to 1 or 2 tap red bars most of the time, and they'll still put really good damage into orange bars. So explosive payload's here if you want it, but if you take explosive payload, you're giving up Volt Shot. I still think Volt Shot is the best 3.0 verb to apply to enemies. Better than Scorch, better than Volatile. It reprocs itself over time, adds the damage passively, and hits enemies nearby. It's very consistent to do, too. Get 1 kill, reload, do it again. Pairing that with Dragonfly, which on kill causes a regular explosion that does damage, it won't outright kill most things in a Grandmaster, but it will put a big dent into them, so that when you hit them with Volt Shot and you hit a headshot, it might just kill them outright and proc another Dragonfly Volt Shot reload. This thing clears ads like nobody's business. It's not going to punch through most orange bars as fast as other hand cannons, which is why it's a little bit lower. That's a bit more specialized. But if this was reversed and you had explosive and Volt Shot, this might be higher. But for legend and more ad-dense GMs in high-tier content, this thing is a monster for sure. Coming in at 6, just above that, is the Crota's End Word of Crota hand cannon. Now this is a Void 180, so a little bit controversial here. I think a 180 is very high up here. The damage of 180s is actually respectable. I think it's bad half the time. However, it is numerically extremely good. Not only that, this thing rolls with everything that it needs to. Cursed Thrall as an origin trait, after a melee kill, gives you 7 seconds where you basically have Dragonfly, including body shots, right? So you have explosions, Necrochasm explosions on every kill for 7 seconds, and you can pair that with destabilizing rounds for more explosions. And on top of that, if you really wanted, you could also take Dragonfly to have 3 explosions pop every kill. If you're getting headshot kills after getting a melee kill, you know, a little bit of hoops to jump through, but that's a lot of explosions to be happening pretty much constantly. Now, I run personally destabilizing rounds, Repulsor Brace, and this is my Void Titan primary because it is disgusting even into endgame. Getting kills, giving you destabilizing rounds, working with controlled demolition that gives you healing. You get Repulsor Brace on top of that, giving you faster grenade cooldown because you have overshields with defensive bulwark. This is a great piece to work into with those classes. If you're on Hunter, you could even take destabilizing rounds off if you're running your Falcons. Maybe take Sword Logic, take Frenzy, kind of up that reload speed. You have a lot of options here. And for most Void classes, this is kind of the pinnacle. Now, for the biggest surprise on this list is number 5, the VS Pyroelectric Propellant. From Vesper's Host, this arc auto rifle is a 600 RPM, which isn't even like the best archetype. This thing just has a really good roll of attrition orbs, jolting feedback. Jolt hits do count towards attrition orbs, so this thing makes orbs pretty quickly. As an assault rifle, it procs it in 11 hits if you're amplified, which is pretty fast. And on top of that, it has one of the best origin traits in the game, Bray Legacy, giving you ability to your closest charged ability at a pretty good rate, about 0.2% per hit. So 10 hits is 2%, and a mag of almost 50, you're getting about 5% per mag. And this is primary ammo, right? So you're dumping this constantly, all the time, just getting ability energy. It's topping you off on the things that you're close to, which is probably the things that you're using the most. It might be a little bit slower than some of the other weapons, but attrition orbs can give you, like we said, healing, ammo, extra ability cooldowns, and Jolt being that really consistent damage perk that can AoE add clear and give you single target damage without having to get a kill. This thing easily takes the cake for number 5. At number 4, we have the only void weapon above Word of Crota, Exalted Truth from Trials of Osiris. Now this thing is a 140. Most people like 140s more. Technically the 180 has better damage. The reason that this is up here is because it gets a more unique perk setup. We have Destabilizing and Withering Gaze in the left column. Withering Gaze just started going on the primaries. This is probably the best primary that gets Withering Gaze in the left column to boot. You can pair this with a damage perk where you can apply Weaken pretty much on demand. Now, it is competing with the Stabilizing rounds, so obviously if you want to go for kills and getting good ad clear out here, or maybe anti-barrier built in, the Stabilizing rounds is the obvious left column pick. And you can pair that with something like One for All, with the explosions pretty much proccing it for you. You'll get 35% bonus damage on top of volatile rounds. Or you could take Repulsor Brace if you want the standard combo. You know, you're going to be enjoying the fluidity of a 140 over the 180, but you will be missing that Cursed Thrall origin trait. The origin trait's the best you got. It's pretty much Suro Synergy. Maybe one quiet moment if you have the time to wait to reload. But you're using this really for that destabilizing round combo with a damage perk or Withering Gaze or Demoralize. Demoralize destabilizing rounds is a double splash combo, really good for ad clear. You can weaken the enemies and hit them with the volatile explosion at the same time. I still think the damage perk's better. It is 35% and doesn't require the enemies to be next to the enemy that you killed. But if you get something else, if you want to work with something into a build, this is a great place to go. Number 3, another arc weapon. I don't know if you noticed, but all of the arc weapons were in the top 10 here. So they performed extremely well. Why is Posterity number 3? Again, it's a 180. This might be the best 180 in the game. This thing rolls Volt Shot in the left column. I think it still might be the only gun in the game to roll Volt Shot in the left column. And you can pair that with the newly buffed Redirection, where every hit against a red bar gives you 2 stacks to this, up to 30, and hitting an elite will consume up to 2 stacks while enhanced. It's a little different when it's unenhanced, but you're going to enhance this for double damage shots if you have 2 stacks. 50% per stack. That does work with Jolt. So if you jolt and hit a lot of red bars, you get a bunch of stacks. If you jolt and hit some orange bars, you consume stacks and do a bunch of damage. So pairing Redirection with Volt Shot on a hand cannon will let you absolutely chew through orange bars in most content, even endgame. On top of the Jolt giving you AoE ad clear, it's a best of both worlds scenario. Now, you can take Frenzy if you're not into the whole redirection thing. If you don't get it, take Frenzy. Frenzy Volt Shot is still a disgusting combo. This gives you 15% more damage per shot, maxes out your reload, giving you, faster Volt Shot procs. You've got the Bray Inheritance origin trait now. Bray Inheritance is very similar to Bray Legacy, except instead of giving you 0.2%, 0.3% to your most charged ability per hit, this instead gives you a percentage to every ability you have as long as it's on cooldown. Doesn't split it up. It's the same percentage to each, which for Posterity is just under 0.5% at 0.45%. Not to mention, this works with Jolt. So you can get quite a lot of ability energy very quickly, passively with this. You don't have to try and do it. You're not running demo. You're going to run double damage perks, and you get to have ability energy on top of your build. So give it a try. If you've been sleeping on it, I promise you, it's worth it. You have to get used to the 180 recoil, I know, but it's worth it. Now, number 2, I think you all kind of expect to see this. This is not going to be a surprise by any means. Number 2, is Unloved from Sundered Doctrine. This is the hand cannon that made me realize 2-round bursts aren't as bad as I thought. They're good. This thing's damage is great. This thing has good perk rolls. I don't really have the one that I want. I really want a Dragonfly Frenzy, but I have Hatchling Tear, which is close enough, I guess. I am working on it. I think Dragonfly Frenzy is your great all-around roll. If you want to do Strand, I think Tear is probably preferable to Hatchling. Hatchling Frenzy, not a bad combo. That would be a pretty decent Strand one, especially if you're running Thread of Evolution. Threadlings don't do bad damage. They do pretty good damage. If they buff it at all, it's going to get only better, right? Paracausal Affinity here is also a good one if you are working on Prismatic or just don't really care about the reload speed. If you get a Paracausal, I wouldn't be upset. The reason that this is so far up here is the origin trait on this weapon is amazing. This gives all your shots against red bars explosive payload, just intrinsic. Against yellow bars and higher, you'll give them exhaustion, which is basically sever. And if you're in PvP, this will give you flinch resist, but this is in the PvP list, so who cares? The explosive payload shots, just adding free damage on top of this weapon, makes it the second best in the game. No contest. The only reason there are things above this is because they do more damage. But this has some strand synergy. You can use this in a class. You can use this on non-strand, but you are losing a little bit of that subclass synergy on your primary, which I value subclass synergy on my primary. You could also be using these things for just champion stunning, which is fine. This intrinsically does not have anything anti-champion, which is a little bit of a mark against it, but its damage is to its benefit. You can do a lot of that stuff with your subclass, and we know it's in the artifact coming up. So, number 2, Unloved. Now, at number 1, I am cheating just a little bit. I don't have any honorable mentions on this list. I could have probably done that. But these two are pretty much inseparable. They are basically the same thing. So I'm putting them together because they fulfill almost the exact same role. I'll give you a couple of caveats and why you might choose between them. This is Fatebringer and Midnight Coup, are 2 kinetic 140 hand cannons. Both of them raid weapons. Midnight Coup used to be, it's from Into the Light now, or Onslaught, so you can do that for the Vanguard. And Fatebringer being from Vault of Glass and is now craftable. Statistically, Midnight Coup has the better reload speed and handling. Fatebringer has the better range and stability. Midnight Coup does have a couple more rounds in the mag, but it really comes down to the perks. If we're looking at the perks, on the left we have Fatebringer, on the right we have Midnight Coup. Both of these get explosive payload in the left column, and Frenzy or One for All in the right column. So, if you're looking for a Frenzy explosive payload roll, which is like the classic Fatebringer roll, that will get you pretty much everything you need to run Grandmasters, Day 1 raids, all that jazz. That is the roll. If you take One for All, you're going to get a little bit more damage. You're going to lose a bit of the reload speed. Still, even more damage. Great combo to take. Both of these get weapons, both get that. So they are both at the number 1 spot, because being kinetic, you do a little bit more damage to all enemies that aren't bosses. Now, the reason you might take one of these over the other, Fatebringer gets Kinetic Tremors in the left column. So, you could run Kinetic Tremors with something like One for All or Frenzy. My issue with that is, One for All wants you to hit multiple enemies. Now, Kinetic Tremors can hit multiple enemies and proc One for All. But if you're not procced, and you're trying to proc One for All and then Kinetic Tremors, you have to hit 3 separate enemies, which delays your Kinetic Tremors proc. Frenzy, while it does give you a 15% damage buff and does stack with Kinetic Tremors, doesn't counteract fall off the way Explosive Payload does. Explosive Payload cuts off half your fall off, which will never fall off. And then the rest of your damage only falls off, a portion of the amount. So proportionally, you have much more range with an Explosive Payload weapon versus not. Midnight Coup gets to run Explosive Payload and Kinetic Tremors at the same time. That's my new favorite endgame role. Explosive Payload will let you get the range to 1-shot or 2-shot most adds in endgame content with 1 less shot than you would without it. And Kinetic Tremors gives you the damage you need against tankier enemies without having a requirement to it other than just shooting them. Not only that, Midnight Coup has Shoot to Loot, which, as I said, has become one of my favorite perks of all time. I have been running a Shoot to Loot Kinetic Tremors hand cannon for almost all of this year. I haven't even been taking my Explosive Payload because I've been so used to shoot to loot from Kvostov and other weapons this year that I feel weird when I'm trying to pick up heavy without shoot to loot. Literally doing a Volta Glass raid like last week, I was so confused because I was shooting a brick and not picking it up because I had a different Midnight Coup on. Apparently, the only other thing that is different between these two is the origin trait. Midnight Coup has probably the more consistently useful origin trait, but Fatebringer has arguably the more powerful. Now, Midnight Coup has Indomitability, which is that 5% grenade or melee ability based on your super, and Fatebringer has Time Loss Magazine, which is an additional 1% super energy per kill, give or take, which is going to go up to about 1.5% next patch if you have 100 intellect. Now, you do get the double mag size when you cast supers and stuff, but they're not really worried about that with the primary. Maybe it'll help you out in a fight or something like that, but you're really thinking about this for the super energy. So you can get Kinetic Tremors, you can pair it with something like One for All and KT, and then you get to run Time Loss Magazine for some more super energy. Or you could run Explosive Payload or Shoot to Loot with Kinetic Tremors on Midnight Coup and get some extra grenade or melee energy. It really comes down to what your build is, what you personally prefer. Do you prefer the reload speed on Midnight Coup, the range on Fatebringer, the recoil of one over the other? Midnight Coup has 150 recoil, while Fatebringer has the 140 recoil. But I really like Shoot to Loot, and that's kind of why it's up here for me. It's my personal pick of these two, but I can't tell you that Fatebringer is wrong, and I can't tell you that I'm not going to replace my Midnight Coup with the Fatebringer for a day one raid just because I like how it sounds. So that's it. That is our top 18 primary legendary weapons before Edge of Fate. Again, things may change on Thursday. We might see the patch notes, I'm assuming, for weapons. It feels like it's about that time for them to tell us what the meta is going to be. So I will update in the comment section down below if there's any significant shifts. If some weapon that's not on this list is suddenly, at the top, I'm going to let you know down below. If something on here falls off dramatically, I'll let you know down below. Let me know what you think about these. Are you using any of these? Have you thought about these weapons now that I've shown them to you? Is Imminence on your list now and it wasn't before? Are you thinking about No Hesitation more? If you're going into the contest raid, I imagine you would be thinking about No Hesitation already. I don't know. Tell me what you're thinking. Let me know down below. Drop a like. Subscribe. Going to be streaming the entire week of the Edge of Fate. We're going to be streaming the contest raid. We're not going to be racing for world first, but we are going to be going into the raid blind. We're going to be trying to clear it without help. We might look up some damage strats. We always kind of go in blind and just feel our way through it and try and do it on contest. We didn't get to finish it last year because a lot of things came together. I was sick. It was a family member's birthday for some of us. So we just did not even have the time past like 8 hours to do the raid. So this year, we're going to go ahead. We're going to try and finish it up in that 48-hour period. So I hope to see you all there. I hope to see you back here soon. We have special weapons coming up soon. I will also do heavy weapons and then probably exotics. So stay around for that. And I will see you all again very, very soon.